Mother's Day, everyone. We're going to take our lesson today from Proverbs chapter 31. And it's a proverb that we're told was written by King Lemuel. Proverbs 31 and verse 1 says, "The sayings of King Lemuel, and inspired utterance his mother taught him." So this is something that Lemuel's mother gave to him. Now, who is Lemuel? Many believe that this was King Solomon, and that this was a pet name that was given to him by his mother Bathsheba. And he had a great respect for his mother, and we're going to see that here in chapter 31, because this becomes it's almost like a Mother's Day card that he writes to her. So, the sayings of Solomon, King Lemuel. Now, oftentimes we have pet names for our kids, and I believe that this was his mother's pet name for him, Lemuel, which means blessed of God. And so here we have what his mother taught him when he was just a child. What did she teach him? She's going to teach him three things we're going to see here. In verses 2 and 3, she said, "Listen, my son, listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers." So you remember the story of David and Bathsheba. And when Bathsheba conceived a child by David out of wedlock, that child died, and was only a few days old when that child died. And Bathsheba was heartbroken, as you can imagine. And she prays, "Lord, give me another child." And that child that would be born next would be Solomon, who would grow up to be the king of Israel after King David. So she says, "Listen, oh son, listen, the answer to my prayers. You're the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings." So her first bit of advice to this young Solomon as he's growing up is, watch out for women, she says. Don't spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. Now, you would understand that Bathsheba would know what she was talking about here. When all of David's men went out to fight the battles, David stayed back, remember that. And it was there that Bathsheba went up, and she was bathing there in plain view of the king. And that's when the king sent his attendants and called for her. And though she was married, David had a relationship with Bathsheba, and that's when she conceived this child. And she says, and there are some who believe that Bathsheba may have been culpable in this, that it wasn't just something that David wanted to do, but that some people believe that she knew that the king was there, and that he would see her as she was bathing there in plain sight on her roof, the roof of her home, which they did, and she had some responsibility in this. So she knows what she's talking to here, knows what she's talking about when she says, "Don't spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings." I was a young woman, and I could have ruined King David. And I was the problem. He was the problem, and so was I. The problem is what she's saying. So first thing that she warns him about is don't involve yourself with women who are going to take away your strength. She might have even been thinking back at a time in her own Bible stories that she would have known about, and thinking about one of the great men of Israel's history, one of the judges, who was a great he-man who had a she problem. And his name was Samson. And we're told in Judges chapter 14 about Samson. Samson had a problem not only with Delilah, and we remember the story of Samson and Delilah, but there's also the story of Samson and another woman. She was a Philistine woman, and Samson went down to this area called Philistia, and there he saw a young woman that he liked a lot, and when he returned home, he said to his father and his mother, "I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now, get her for me as my wife." And that sounds as bad as it is. I mean, here he sounds like a spoiled child. He's saying, "I want that woman. Mom, Dad, go get that woman for me. I like her." And the mother and the father replied, "Isn't there an acceptable woman among our own people that you can find? Just somebody here?" And because they were not supposed to. They weren't supposed to intermarry with the nations around them. And these were their enemies. And this was not something that was acceptable. So the mother and the father don't want to do this. But we're told Samson said to his father, "Get her for me. She's the right one for me." And she's not the right one for you, Samson. What are you thinking about? That created a lot of problems in Samson's life, in the life of his family. And he shouldn't have been going after this woman who was not one of God's children. Well, he never ended up marrying her for a lot of reasons. You can go back and read that story in chapter 14 and of Judges. But then we remember the story of Delilah. He didn't have just a problem with this one woman from Timnah, but there was another woman who was a Philistine also, Delilah. And you remember how Delilah was given a lot of money to betray Samson. And she finally was able to get him to tell her the secret of all of his strength. And it says when Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. And after putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him. And his strength left him. Now, I've got to think that Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, when she is telling him these stories as a young man, she's relating to him not just the things that she did, that she learned lessons from, but also these Bible stories that would have been very real in her mind about one of the great men in Israel who could have been a great leader who fell. And she's saying, "Watch out for women. My son, Solomon, please, watch out for women. Watch out for women." So that's her first word of advice. And then in chapter 31 of Proverbs, verse 4, not only watch out for women, but she says, "It is not for kings, Lemuel." Not for kings, young Solomon. "It is not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and deprive all of the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more." So the second word of advice from this mother to her son is not only watch out for the women, but watch out for the wine. Don't let yourself become intoxicated. You're going to make bad decisions if you are drinking alcohol, and that's not for you. You're going to be a leader of people. You have been called to a great position. And because of that, you have to watch out for yourself. You want to have a clear mind. You want to have the ability to think clearly, and that's why you want to stay away from the wine. Stay away from the alcohol. So watch out for women. Watch out for wine, and that's always a good thing to watch out for. The Bible says, don't be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. Don't let these other spirits so intoxicate you, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. And that's what we want. We want to let God fill us with His Spirit and not be clouded in our judgment. Is drinking alcohol a wrong thing? The Bible doesn't say that that's wrong. It says just the idea of being intoxicated, to be filled with alcohol so that you cannot make proper decisions, is what Scripture tells us. So for this young king, this young man who would be king, Solomon, his mother says, here's the second word of advice for you. Watch out for wine. Watch out for the alcohol. And there were many stories in Scripture about bad judgments being made by those who should have been clear-minded. You look at Isaiah chapter 28, and we're told there about the rulers of Israel. And it says, and these also stagger from wine and reel from beer. Priests and prophets stagger from beer and are befuddled with wine. They reel from beer. They stagger when seeing visions. They stumble when rendering decisions. And the tables are covered with vomit. And there is not a spot without filth. So Isaiah the prophet, talking about these individuals who should be leading the people and be having good judgment, he says they're not able to have proper understanding because they are filled with alcohol. So be careful with that. The mom, Bathsheba, she says, okay, here's these two areas I'm telling you about. I'm going to give you a third. And back to Proverbs 31 and verse 8, it says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. And what a wonderful thing for this mother to give instruction to her son. You watch out for the needy. Watch out for women. Watch out for wine. And then watch out for the weak, those who are in need. So these are three areas of wonderful advice that this mom gives her young son. Live in purity, live soberly, have a heart for those who are needy. Watch out for the women, watch out for wine, watch out for the weak. In these areas, this young man Solomon, this is before he became king, as she would teach him and admonish him daily as he's growing older, says these are these areas that you need to be watching out. So in the rest of this chapter, in chapter 31 of Proverbs, he goes on to speak of his mom. And it's a Mother's Day message to his mom. So the rest of this, he's remembering what she told him. And now he is going to give her a Mother's Day card. For the rest of this chapter is just this beautiful poetry about his mother. So this is what he says about her. Mom, you told me these things when I was growing up. Now I want to just bless you. Now, this is the amazing thing. At this point, he is an old man. He is speaking toward the end of his life, and he is writing these things. He's remembering his mother. It would have been nice if he would have been able to tell her these things much earlier while she was still around. But she's been gone for probably a couple of decades at this point. But this is what he writes to her in remembering her. Mom, I remember you, and these are the things that I want to say about you. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Mom, you're a gem. You are a jewel of jewels. And you can see how his heart just goes out remembering his mom. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. And the idea there is that financially, her husband doesn't have to worry. She's not going to go and break the bank. You know, he can trust her with the checkbook. She is financially responsible. She knows how to take care of things without spending all of the family's money. He says, she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant's ships. She brings her food from afar. And what that means is, here's a woman who gives thought to the things of the home. And she brings food from afar. She looks for the best deals. She looks for the best foods. And she goes in search of these. She drives that extra 20 miles to get to a place where she doesn't have to shop at the 7-Eleven. She goes to the place where she's going to get some good deals on food. She rises also while it is yet night and gives meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. So, she gets up. While it's still night, dark outside, and she's getting up early in the morning, and she's taking care to meet the needs of her family, of her household. It says she considers a field, and she buys it. And with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. So this is Solomon's saying, my mom, she is industrious. She was not only into planting a vineyard, she's farming, she's taking care of our vegetable garden. She's also out there buying real estate. She could do all things. She could do anything she put her mind to. She girds up her loins with strength and strengthens her arms. While this woman is out there and she's planting and she's buying, she's also working out. She's got a gym in her home and she's making her arms strong and she's physically fit. It says, she perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goes not out by night. She lays her hands to the spindle and her hands hold the distaff. That is, she sews and she washes and she cooks and all of these things. She's just a woman of many, many talents and energy. That's my mom. Solomon's saying, my mom is amazing. Verse 20, she stretches out her hand to the poor. And that's what she was telling Solomon about. Take care of the poor. Yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She's ready. This woman is ready for the winter months, and she's ready for spring and summer and fall, and she's taking care of the family, making sure that they are dressed appropriately for each season that approaches. She's not afraid of the snow. She's got them all ready. She's got the boots and she's got the jackets and the sweaters, and she makes sure everything's good. She makes herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. So she knows how to dress. She's not like She's able to get the material and just make these beautiful outfits of clothing for her family. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Her husband, that would be King David. He was a leader among the people. And when it talks about a leader among the people, they would sit in the gate and they would discuss the things of the kingdom. And her husband is known in the gates. She makes fine linen and sells it and delivers girdles unto the merchants. That is, this woman holds Tupperware parties and, all the other stuff. And, all the things that she's got going on, that she's able to do these things. She's not only making clothing for her family, but she's making it and she's selling it. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. When she speaks, it's wisdom and kindness. Wisdom and kindness, and Solomon understood this. He says, she looks well to the ways of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. And the idea there is, he's saying, she's not idle. She doesn't sit around at people's homes and gossip about things. She is an industrious, responsible, wise, and kind woman. So it says, her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but you excel them all. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And that's what he's saying about his mom. She grew older, her beauty began to fade, but it didn't matter because she was a woman of honor. She was a woman that deserved praise. She was virtuous and she excelled all the other women because of her inner beauty. Give her the fruit of her hands and let her own works praise her in the gates. What she has done, the things that she has done, all the works that she has done, those are the things that you could look at and you could give her praise because of the things that she had accomplished. This is an amazing, all of this chapter it's written in poetry form. Would take those verses, and the first few verses would be in the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and then the next few verses in the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So he's writing this in poetry, and he's saying, Mom, this is my Mother's Day card to you. What a beautiful way to give a card to your mom. It would have been nice if he could have done this much earlier. He thought well of his mom, but he wrote this after his mother had died. Now he's reflecting back on her memory, and when she died, she probably felt like a failure. And I want to explain that. Because as wonderful as he looked at his mother, and as glorious of a woman and honored as she was, there was a time earlier in her life that she would have looked at her son Solomon and wondered, are you listening to me? And I think sometimes moms, you wonder that about your children. Are they hearing the things that I'm saying? And I think that was the case with Bathsheba and with Solomon. Because Solomon started well, and his mother saw this. We're told in 2 Kings chapter 3 that Solomon became the king. David had appointed him king. And God had asked him, Solomon, what do you want? And Solomon said, I want wisdom. I want wisdom, Lord. Give me wisdom to rule your people. And you think that is an incredible thing for a ruler to ask for, asking for wisdom. And it says in chapter 3 of 2 Kings, the Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for wisdom. So God said to him, since you have asked for this, and not for long life and wealth and all of the other things, I'm going to give you the wisdom, and I'm going to give you wealth, and I'm going to give you blessings beyond what you can even imagine. Wealth and honor all throughout your lifetime, he says. But here's where it began to go wrong. Remember the three things that Bathsheba had warned him about? I want to warn you about women. I want to warn you about wine. And I want to warn you to watch out, take care of those who are weak and those who are needy. Well, the first one, watch out for women. As Solomon, as he was the king, he began to draw to himself wives and mistresses. As a matter of fact, we're told in 1 Kings chapter 11, King Solomon loved many strange women. The word strange, I love the word strange. It's actually talking about foreign women. Women who were not of his own people. They were strange in a real sense. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he took for himself wives from the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Sidonians, the Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after other gods. Nevertheless, Solomon took them to himself as wives. How many? 700 wives. And it says that they turned his heart away from the Lord to serve other gods. His mom had warned him, Solomon, don't do this. Don't do this, because you don't want to give your strength to women. Listen to what the Lord says. And he took 700 wives, and he wasn't listening to the Lord. He wasn't listening to the advice that was given to his mom. And sometimes we have our moms give us advice, and as children, we don't heed that advice, do we? Well, Bathsheba, she was wondering, I raised him correctly. I told him the ways of the Lord. What happened to him? Not only did he have 700 wives, but he also had 300 concubines, which are mistresses. So he has 1,000 women at his disposal. What's the second thing? The second thing was alcohol. Solomon, watch out for the women, but also I want you to watch out for the wine. And we're told that Solomon didn't heed his mother's advice in this area either, because when we get to the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that Solomon, Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 3, Solomon says this, he says, I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly. Some people believe that Solomon so indulged in alcohol that he became an alcoholic. I don't know where you can look to actually say that, but I do know this, that he did involve himself with drinking to a high degree. So the wine was flowing freely in his palace, we're told. We're told that he had peacocks, and they would walk through in the parties that he'd have, in these grand and lavish parties where you had all of this alcohol to cheer yourself. So in this area of wine, of drinking, he let himself go. He didn't listen to his mother there. Watch out for women. Watch out for wine. And then this third area, remember, she said, I want you to watch out for the weak, those who are in need. We find out after Solomon's death a little bit about his life. His son, Rehoboam, was going to be the next king in Israel. And he's about ready to take over the kingdom after his father's death. And we're told there that he comes before the people, the rulers of the people. And they've been upset with Solomon because Solomon put a heavy burden upon the people. He taxed the people. And they were ready to rebel. And the wise men told Rehoboam, they said, you have to ease up on them. Don't be like your father was. Don't be like Solomon and put heavy constraints and burdens upon the people and tax them. And you have to be easy on them. Well, Rehoboam had some younger men who were giving him the opposite advice. And he didn't listen to the older men. He listened to the younger men. And this is what it says in 1 Kings chapter 12. My father made your yoke heavy. My father taxed you. My father took from you. My father, he didn't listen to he took all the things that were yours. He made himself wealthy on your backs. He says, my father made your yoke heavy. I will make it even heavier, Rehoboam says. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. He's saying, whatever my father did, I am going to be even worse than that. And then you have a rebellion. You have the nation of Israel at this time dividing into two parts. You have a civil war, and you have the two parts in the south that become the nation of Judah, and you have the 10 tribes in the north that become the nation of Israel. So Israel and Judah, and they would squabble and they would fight back and forth, but the two never came together again after that. So he didn't listen to his mom. He went the wrong way when it came to women. He went the wrong way when it came to wine, and he went the wrong way when it came to the weak and the needy. And he was very hard on the people of his kingdom. And no doubt Bathsheba must have thought, all of this training that I gave my son, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And sometimes we feel that way with our children. Are they getting it? Are they understanding the things that we're putting in there? And I think that he did. She, at some point in here, she died. And now Solomon is thinking back on her life and the things that she said. And toward the end of his life, he would say this in Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 22. He would say, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This was never known to Bathsheba on this side of eternity. She didn't see how her words, her godly words, her righteous words, finally impacted her son. She saw it at the beginning, but she saw him then begin to kind of take a turn. But here at the end of his life, as he thinks back on his mom, and he's writing her this postcard, he says, you know, Mom, you were right. You train up a child the way you trained me up when I was young. You trained me up in the right way to go. And though I was departing from it along the way, you train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he's not going to depart. He's going to remember those lessons from Mom. And certainly, he did. Certainly, Solomon remembered those lessons. And now, in this last chapter of Proverbs, he's writing her this, and he's saying, Mom, you were amazing. You were an awesome mom, and thank you so much for this. If you have a wayward child, what you can do is you continue to speak the word to them. You speak what God has given in his word. And God says, I'm going to take my word and I'm going to use it in their life. In Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 11 it says, my word, God says, my word that goes out from my mouth will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it out. But God says, my word, it's powerful. And when it goes out and it hits a person's heart, it's going to find room there within that person. And it's going to accomplish the task that I have sent it out to accomplish. So, if you have young kids, you continue just to pour in God's word. Because God says it's going to have a work. It's going to do a work in their life. And though you may not see it, as they grow older, it's going to continue to work in their life. And as Solomon, when he was old, he says, I remember what my mom said. I remember the things she said. And she was right. She was right. We're told in Galatians chapter 6, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. He says there's this whole thing about reaping and sowing. And parents, moms especially, if you will sow righteousness, if you will sow the Word of God into your child's life, there's going to be a reaping. And that child will reap the benefit of that in time. Maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't, but it will be there. Lord, I pray for moms. I pray for moms on this Mother's Day that you would minister to them and help them just to continue to be faithful in prayer for their child, their children, that they would be faithful in continuing to give them words of encouragement, your word, Father, and that as these words of yours go out into their kids' lives, Lord, that they're going to see just a reaping of righteousness. Even if they don't see it now, Lord, I pray that you would encourage them to be faithful to you in this. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.